you close your eyes. But tonight, sleep doesn't come like a gentle wave. It comes like the end of the world, not loud, not screaming, but slow, silent like time giving up, like a clock that just stops ticking. What if I told you that sleep is not just rest? What if it's a rehearsal for death, a sacred moment when your mind dissolves and the world forgets you existed? Just for a little while, tonight, we won't count sheep, we will count regrets. We will whisper the thoughts people run from in the daylight. We will listen to what philosophers feared, what poets barely understood, what ancient mystics died trying to describe. The silence after the last heartbeat, because this isn't a lullaby. It's an invitation to the end of everything. And you are finally brave enough to listen. So, lie down, surrender. Let your bones forget their weight. Let your breath get slower than time. And as your thoughts start to scatter like ashes, we will guide you into the void with words ancient and forbidden. You're not just going to sleep. You're going to drift beyond meaning, beyond memory, beyond the edge of all that ever was. This is eternal rest. But wait, ... before you close your eyes forever. If you're brave enough to listen to this until the end, then you belong. Here, not with the crowd, not with the shallow sleepers. You belong with those who search for answers in the dark, with minds that find comfort not in noise, but in the infinite quiet of truth. So, if your heart beats a little differently, subscribe, not just to a channel, but to a journey into the most silent, secret places of the soul. We don't do feel good, we do feel real. You won't find happiness here, you'll find truth. And sometimes, truth is the most peaceful sedative of all. So hit that red button. Join the tribe of minds who think even while falling asleep. Because this is no ordinary sleep. This is the end, and now we begin. Long before there were clocks, before candles flickered in stone huts, before fire danced in the eyes of men, there was darkness, a darkness that swallowed entire nights, and with it came sleep, but not the kind of sleep you know now, not the sleep measured by bedtime routines or disturbed by phone screens and alarms. This was older, wilder, something sacred. Something feared. You are lying in that darkness now, not in your bed, but in the caves of time. No language, no names, just you and the hum of a world too big to understand. You hear the wind moving like a spirit outside, the growl of distant animals, the whisper of stars. You pull your fur-lined skin tighter around you and close your eyes. Sleep then was not a pause in the day. It was a crossing, a surrender to the void. Ancient humans didn't sleep because they were tired. They slept because the night demanded it, because the world stopped, and to resist it was death. But, in a strange way, to give in to sleep also felt like dying. Your ancestors didn't dream of apps or work meetings. They dreamed of fire gods, of shadows that walked, of ancestors calling to them across the Black River. To fall asleep was to disappear, and to wake up. That was a miracle, so they honored sleep. They wrapped themselves in ritual. They painted the cave walls with ochre and ash. They whispered songs that only the night understood. Can you feel it now? This sleep is older than you. Older than your name. It knows your bones. It knows the weight behind your eyes. It knows how many generations had to suffer just for you to lie down in this moment. And yet, here you are, fighting thoughts, fighting silence, afraid to let go. You're not alone. Even the first humans were terrified of letting go. They feared that when they closed their eyes, they might never open them again. And in some ways, they were right, because sleep, in its purest, rawest form, is practice for death. Every night, you lie still. Your body cools. Your consciousness fragments. Your breath softens to nothing. And the world moves on without you. But that's not frightening. That's freedom. Sleep, in ancient times, wasn't about recovery. It was about letting the self dissolve. They believed the soul left the body during sleep. They believed dreams were messages from the underworld. They believed rest was a kind of visit to the dead. And maybe they were right. Maybe you're visiting them now. Right here, right in this moment. You, listening to this voice, breathing slower, drifting deeper. You are not in your bedroom anymore. You're in the same darkness where your ancient ancestors used to lie. The same darkness they whispered into. The same sleep that took them night after night until one day it didn't return them. That, they said, was eternal rest. But listen closely. Not all eternal rest is tragic. Some rest is earned. Some souls were so tired, so finished, that they welcomed it. They saw death not as an end, but as the deepest, dreamless sleep where the body no longer aches and the mind is finally quiet. Can you imagine that? A silence that doesn't scare you, but soothes you. Let that idea hold your hand now. You're not dying, but you are dissolving, layer by layer, thought by thought, like mist in the early dawn. And in this place, you will start to feel something strange, relief, not because you escaped life, but because you remembered that you were never supposed to carry it all forever. That's what the ancients knew. That's why they gave themselves to the night. They didn't call it insomnia. They called it being haunted. And the cure was not pills. It was surrender. Complete, unshakable surrender to the dark dot. So tonight, try surrendering, not like someone escaping a stressful day, but like someone walking into the arms of something older than the moon. Breathe like they did, slowly, reverently, as if each breath was a ritual, as if the darkness around you wasn't empty but sacred. Can you feel the air getting heavier? That's not exhaustion, that's memory. The memory of thousands of souls who came before you and lay in silence, just like this. You're part of them now. You don't need answers tonight. You don't need to solve anything. You don't need to be anyone. Tonight, you sleep like the ancients did, as if the world has ended. And that's okay. They say dreams are just the brain firing random signals. But what if that's a lie? What if the things you see behind closed eyes aren't meaningless flickers but messages? Messages from somewhere or someone you've forgotten. Ancient people didn't think of dreams as accidents. They didn't shrug them off the way we do now, blaming them on bad food or restless nights. To them, dreams were sacred transmissions, warnings, invitations, echoes from the other side. When they dreamt, they didn't wake up and scroll through a screen. They sat in silence and listened. Every strange symbol, every flickering figure in the dark was examined like smoke from a fire far away. And why shouldn't they think that? After all, dreams speak in a language we never learned, but always understand. They bypass reason. They don't care for logic. They emerge from the deeper place, beyond your name, beyond your face, beyond even your heartbeat. You've been there. You know the feeling. You're running from something you can't see. You're watching someone you once loved, but they don't recognize you anymore. You're floating, falling, drowning, flying. Time bends. Places twist. And in the middle of it all, somehow you just know what it means. But where does it come from? Some ancient cultures believed the dead used dreams to speak to the living, not always with words, but with signs. A broken gate, a burning tree, a whisper that echoes from nowhere. These weren't hallucinations to them. These were visits. The veil, they believed, thinned when we slept, and in that space between waking and the void our ancestors leaned close to remind us who we are, or warn us what's coming. You felt it before, a dream that shook you so hard you woke with tears you couldn't explain, a dream that made you question what's real. Maybe, just maybe, those weren't dreams. Maybe someone was knocking from the other side. But in the modern world, we silence those knocks. We label them nonsense. We medicate ourselves into forgetting. We fill our nights with blue light, with noise, with clutter until there's no room left for anything sacred. No room for whispers. No room for the dead. Yet still, they come. Because the dead, unlike us, aren't in a hurry. They wait. They watch. And when your mind finally quiets, when you let the world drop away, they speak. Maybe that's why sleep still scares you. It's not the dark that bothers you. It's the possibility that someone, something, is waiting for you in it. Something you forgot, something that remembers you. Tonight, let's not be afraid of it. Let's listen instead. If someone visits you in a dream, don't dismiss them. Don't run. Stay. Watch. Ask them why they've come. The dead don't waste time with small talk. If they appear, they bring truth. Painful truth. Comforting truth. Heavy truth, but always truth. The ancient Egyptians believed that in sleep, your soul left the body and wandered through the spirit world. They called this part of the soul the and while your body lay still, the bus soared, collecting knowledge from other realms. Sometimes it returned with wisdom, other times with warnings, but it always came back, unless it didn't. That's why they buried their dead with Karaptin protection, surrounded by amulets and sacred symbols, because they knew how thin the line was between dreaming and dying. One wrong step in the other world, and the sleeper would never wake so. Tonight, as you drift, don't fear your dreams. Open yourself to them. Let them guide you. They might show you a forest you've never seen, a staircase with no end, a face you thought was long forgotten. That's not madness. That's memory, ancient memory, soul memory. You are older than your body, older than your name. Something inside you has wandered through thousands of nights before this one. Something that remembers what it felt like to listen to fire crackle in a cave, to wake from a dream and know deep in the marrow of your bones that it meant something, and it still does, even now. Under your roof and wrapped in soft blankets, your dreams carry messages. You just forgot how to read them. But tonight we remember. Together, let your breathing slow, let your muscles soften. Imagine your soul, light as mist, rising gently from your chest. Don't panic, you are safe, you are whole. This is the oldest part of being alive, leaving the body behind just for a while. You float through silence now, through shadows. You are weightless, boundless, no longer a name, a job, a list of worries. You are the child of sleep, returning to the arms of the night, and in that place they will speak to you, not in words, in symbols, in sensations, in faces you haven't seen in years. Listen without trying to understand. Let the dream do its work. Let the dead say what they need to say, because here's the secret. The dead do not envy the living, but they do worry for us. They see us rush through life, desperate for more, More noise, more distractions, more things, all while ignoring the one thing they now treasure more than gold: rest. That's what they want you to remember. Rest isn't weakness, it's sacred. It's how your soul breathes. It's how you remember who you really are underneath the noise. So tonight, let yourself fall, not into chaos, not into madness, but into the arms of something older than civilization, the place where dreams are born. And if you feel a familiar presence watching as you drift, don't be afraid. It's not there to hurt you. It's just an echo, a memory, a soft hand reaching across time to remind you. You are not alone. You are not forgotten, and it's okay to let go. Long before humans prayed, before they built temples, carved gods, or whispered confessions into the dirt, they slept. And that, perhaps, was the first ritual, not performed with fire, not sung with sacred chants, but with breath, with stillness, with surrender, a nightly offering to the unknowable void. We often think of rituals as something added, a layer over life built from belief, but sleep was always there. It was the first act of faith, the first bow before something greater. Imagine it, a world with no clocks, no language, no afterlife stories, just the rhythm of the sun disappearing and the terrifying comfort of darkness creeping in. When the first humans lay down beside each other in the grass, closing their eyes despite the threat of wild beasts, they weren't just resting, they were trusting that sleep wouldn't swallow them whole, trusting that morning would come again, trusting that the strange theater behind their eyes wouldn't unravel their minds. What else is ritual if not that? When a tribe quieted at dusk, it wasn't laziness, it was reverence. They didn't sleep alone, not just for safety, but for something deeper, to merge their dreams, to share the silence, to step into the same dark together. Fire would burn low at the center of the circle, casting flickering shadows against bone and rock. And around that fire, bodies would curl shoulder to shoulder, breath sinking slowly, each person giving themselves to the same invisible tide. And in that sleep, they met one another in places no waking word could reach. There were no sermons, no chants, only the soft hum of lungs and the occasional murmur from someone lost in dream. Still, that space, that collective surrender was sacred. Sleep was not an escape. It was a homecoming. Think about that for a moment. Sleep, today, has become transactional, measured in hours, optimized, tracked, hacked. It's been ripped from its sacred roots and thrown into calendars like a task. But your body remembers. Your bones remember. They don't care what your schedule says. They only know the rhythm of the earth, the turning of the sky, the ancient ritual of lying down and letting go. Even now, as your head sinks deeper into the pillow, as your limbs grow heavier, you're repeating a rite performed by every human before you, from kings to wanderers, from mothers to warriors. They all, eventually, gave themselves to sleep, and they did it without shame. They didn't see sleep as weakness or laziness or lost time. They saw it as a journey inward, a descent, a place to meet the self they couldn't see in daylight. Some cultures believed that sleep was the closest you could get to the gods without dying, that in those silent hours you could receive visions, guidance, healing. And so they didn't rush it. They prepared for it. They sang lullabies that were really prayers. They burned herbs to cleanse the air. They anointed themselves with oils, not for comfort, but to mark the passage into sacred space. Sleep was treated like a temple, And every night, the bed, whether it was leaves, fur, or woven cloth, became an altar. When did we forget that? When did we start treating sleep like a chore instead of a ritual? When did we stop bowing to the night like it was a holy thing? You can feel the loss, can't you? How often do you lie down with reverence? How often do you greet the dark like an old friend? Tonight, you can remember. You don't need incense or chants. You don't need sacred texts or painted walls. You just need this moment, this breath, this awareness that sleep is not nothing. This is presence as you lie still. Let the body become the ritual. Let your fingers soften like petals. Let your jaw unclench as if releasing 1,000 unsaid words. Let your heart beat slow into rhythm with the oldest drum, the one that has pulsed through every sleeper since the dawn of time. You are part of a lineage now, a sacred order of the dreaming, and your place here is not small. You, too, are performing the ritual just by resting, just by trusting. Let that thought soothe you. You don't have to achieve anything tonight. You don't have to solve the puzzle of your life. You don't have to fix the broken places. You only have to rest, and in doing so, honor every human who came before you. You are not wasting time. You are entering the temple, and in the temple of sleep, there are no prayers, only silence, only breath, only dreams. And if you listen closely, you might hear them, those ancient sleepers, breathing beside you in the dark, sharing in the ritual you've just remembered. You are never alone in this. Even in your deepest sleep, you are part of something eternal. There's a moment right before you fall asleep, a flicker, a slipping sensation. Your thoughts scatter like dust caught in wind, your body twitches, and for a breathless second, you're not sure if you're falling asleep or falling away. That feeling, it's familiar, and it's frightening, isn't it? Because sleep, for all its comfort, hides something darker. It mimics death, it rehearses it, and somewhere deep inside, you know this. That's why you fight. It's sometimes, not consciously, not with fists, but with scrolling fingers, racing thoughts, background noise. You tell yourself you're too busy to rest, but what you're really saying is, I'm afraid to let go. Sleep demands that you vanish, and so does death. Both ask you to surrender, both wrap you in silence, both shut down the noise of life and usher you into a space without language, without time, without ego. In Greek mythology, they understood this deeply. Sleep was not just sleep. It was personified, given a name. They called him Hypnos, and he had a twin, Thanatos, the god of death. They were born from the same womb, and they lived side by side in the underworld. Imagine that every time you close your eyes, you enter the house of a god who shares blood with death himself. No wonder the night carries such weight. No wonder your heart sometimes races when the world goes quiet. Your body remembers the danger hidden in stillness, the risk that sleep might not be followed by morning. Ancient people didn't separate sleep from death like we try to. They believed that to sleep was to dip your toes into the afterlife, not forever, but enough to feel the chill. They called dreams little deaths, and in some cultures, to dream of a dead loved one meant they were trying to pull you closer, trying to keep you in that half-world between life and what waits after. But maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something to understand. Because what if death is just a longer sleep? What if waking, as we know it, is the illusion, and the real world begins only when we let go of everything we cling to? That's the fear no one wants to name. Not just the fear of dying, but the fear that sleep might be the first step down a path with no return. So we armor ourselves. We fall asleep with the lights on. We set alarms. We leave the television humming in the background like a guard dog. We do anything to keep the void at bay. But tonight, you don't need armor. Tonight, you are not here to resist. You are here to understand, to step gently into the truth that sleep and death are not enemies. They are brothers, and both of them want the same thing from you. Your trust. Think of your body now, still heavy, the muscles no longer gripping, the breath slowing, the eyes soft beneath closed lids. You are floating in that in-between, no longer fully here, not quite gone. This is the blur, the borderland, the place where Hypnos and Thanatos walk side by side, neither rushing, neither warning. They simply wait, not as predators, but as guides, because rest is not punishment. It's the mercy of letting go. You don't need to fight to be here. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't even need to stay awake. You're allowed to drift, to dissolve. Let that idea wash over you now. You are not being erased. You're being absorbed, back into the quiet, back into the stillness that existed before your first breath and will continue long after your last. And in this stillness, there is no fear, because what if death isn't the end? What if it's the deepest sleep, a sleep where all your wounds are healed, where time has no edge, where love is not lost, but woven into the fabric of eternity? What if death is not an intruder, but a return to the same dark silence you touch every night, the silence that welcomes you now? You are not falling, you are being carried, held, cradled by something older than life, something that has always known how to bring you home. And whether you wake in a few hours, or wake in another world, you will still be you. You will still be loved. That is the promise of sleep. And the secret of death. They are not opposites. They are twins, and both are waiting for you to stop resisting. So breathe and let go. Let the blur become the blessing. Let the quiet become the guide. Because you are safe, and you are not alone. You are only sleeping, beneath your thoughts, beneath everything. You think you are. There's a landscape no map has ever charted. It's not the mind. It's below the mind, a vast quiet territory that only opens its gates when you surrender to sleep. And in that darkness, there are things buried, forgotten, but not gone, regrets, fears, names you haven't spoken in years, loves that never fully left, pain you told yourself you survived, but never really did. You don't visit this place by choice. You descend into it every night without remembering. That's where the subconscious lives, not in files or folders, but in the soil of your soul. It's a burial ground. And every night, your dreams are like mourners. They wander its pathways. They kneel at unmarked graves. They whisper things you've never said out loud. That's why dreams feel strange. Because they're not fiction. They're excavations. They dig through what's been hidden. And sometimes they show you a face, a version of yourself you tried to forget. Or worse, the version you've never allowed yourself to become. You've met them before in dreams. That adore you, that ghost with your eyes, but a different voice. They don't speak in complete sentences, but their presence lingers when you wake, like a smell from childhood you can't quite place. Why does it matter? Because the things you bury don't die. Not in your subconscious. They wait, and when you sleep, the lock comes loose, the walls thin, and everything you've ever tried to run from, every fear you silenced, every guilt you buried, comes walking through that open gate. But don't be afraid. They're not here to haunt you. They're here to be seen. Sleep isn't just rest. It's reckoning. It's your soul's quiet attempt to make sense of the weight you carry during the day. And when your body finally stills, your subconscious rises like fog from a graveyard and begins its strange ritual. You dream of running, falling, losing teeth, being late, being chased, being found. These are not nonsense. They are metaphors. Symbols your mind uses to show you truths you're not ready to face while awake. That's why sleep is sacred. It is the one place left in modern life where honesty still reigns. Because the subconscious doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't protect your ego. It only reflects what's buried. And here's the eerie part. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between sleep and death. To it, silence is silence. Darkness is darkness. Stillness is stillness. So when you drift off at night, your subconscious doesn't just think you're sleeping. It acts as though you've died. And it begins the work it cannot do while you're alive, sorting, grieving, remembering, restoring. It pulls up old footage. It replays heartbreaks. It distorts familiar faces into monsters, not to scare you, but to warn you. This is the part of you that's most real, the one you spend your waking life avoiding, and yet, it's also the part that knows what peace really is. Because the subconscious doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to release you. It wants you to remember what you buried. It wants you to face it, forgive it, and let it dissolve, so that when you wake, you're lighter, so that when you sleep again, the ground is less crowded with graves. This is the secret of ancient dream work, not just interpreting dreams, but honoring them. They believed dreams were sacred messengers, the dead speaking through the subconscious, the soul whispering what the mind could not say. And maybe that's why you sometimes wake with a tight chest, a racing heart, a feeling you can't name, not because the dream was bad, but because it told the truth. That truth lives in the soil of your subconscious, and the more you ignore it, the louder it calls. So tonight, let it speak. Don't resist the dream. Don't label it strange or scary. Walk with it. Stand beside the graves it reveals. Read the names etched into the stone. Even if those names belong to people you used to be, there's no shame here. Only remembrance, only release. And the more you let your subconscious unearth the buried parts of you, the less afraid you'll be of the sleep-death connection. Because eventually, when your final sleep does arrive, you'll have nothing left. Hidden. You'll greet it not with panic, but with peace. Because you'll know the terrain. You'll have walked it every night. You'll have faced the ghosts, tended the graves, and made peace with your own forgotten self. Sleep is your practice, your preparation, not for dying, but for clearing the soul, so that when you don't go burdened. You go free, so let yourself rest now. Let the burial ground open, and trust that what rises from the soil comes not to harm you, but to free you. This is not fear, this is healing. This is the night doing its sacred work. Let it continue. Let it carry you deeper. You are safe. Here. You are not alone. You are only remembering. You spend your waking life constructing yourself. Name, identity, history. You gather these things like armor, layer by layer. Your achievements, your trauma, your style, your fears. You walk around in a carefully shaped mask and call it me. But sleep doesn't care who you are. It doesn't ask for your resume. It doesn't recognize your face. In sleep, the self you so carefully maintain begins to unravel, thread by thread, and you disappear. There's no panic in this disappearance, only a quiet falling away. It starts with the edgiest sense of time, your name, your story. Then your thoughts begin to dissolve, until even your emotions become vapor. It's terrifying to think about, isn't it? Being no one, and yet it happens every night. Like a ritual death, a soft rehearsal for non-existence. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer once said, "Sleep is the brother of death." For in both we lose the world. But maybe that's not a loss. Maybe it's freedom. Because what are you, really, when no one's watching, when there are no mirrors, no clocks, no roles, no past, no future? Just awareness. Sleep peels you away from the performance. You are no longer the child of someone, the worker of something, the victim of anything. You are not grieving, not aspiring, not regretting. You are simply being, a floating piece of consciousness in a sea without surface. And strangely, that space, the space where you are no one, is where you are closest to everything. You return to a state that existed before you were born, and perhaps the one you'll return to after you die. This is why so many mystics love sleep. Not because it is restful, but because it is sacred. It's the only time the ego dies without taking the body with it. In sleep, the ego loosens its grip, and what's left is you, the raw you. Not the version that's shaped by language or memory, but the essence, the quiet flame that flickers. Beneath all identity, you drift beyond the self, and you are not frightened because you're not even there to be frightened. Fear belongs to the self. But in deep sleep, fear is gone, grief is gone, need is gone. You are in the cradle of the void, and the void is holding you gently. Some call this oblivion, but that's only because we're afraid of what has no edges. Others call it grace, because when you disappear like this, you are not erased. You are released, released from worry, released from meaning, released from all the tight fists your waking mind keeps clenching. Imagine it now. You are floating through the dark. You have no name, no face. You are not good or bad. You are not success or failure. You are just present. This is not a nightmare. This is the soul in its purest form. And when you wake, you return to the self. You pick up the mask, put on the clothes of memory and roll, and step back into the world of me. But sleep is the backstage, where the actor removes the costume, where the audience leaves, where the lights dim and the performance ends. And in that dimness, you finally breathe. There's beauty in disappearing, because only when you vanish can you feel how vast you really are. That's the paradox. In being no one, you become part of everything, like a raindrop slipping into the ocean, like a flame melting into starlight, like breath returning to the wind. So don't be afraid when sleep begins to pull you apart. Don't resist the sensation of slipping away from yourself. This is not loss. This is reunion. Reunion with what you were before you became you, and maybe what you'll be again when this story ends. So tonight, as your body sinks into stillness, let yourself drift beyond the mask, beyond the voice that narrates, beyond the thoughts that spin and spiral. Let yourself become no one, because in that space of no identity, no narrative, there is something sacred, not nothing, but everything else, and there you are finally free, free from fear, free from time, free from the burden of always being someone. You are the darkness, you are the quiet, you are the witness to eternity. Sleep now, let yourself dissolve, not in fear, but in awe. You are safe. you are eternal. You are no one, and in that you are home. Tick, tock, tick, tock. That sound follows you everywhere, the tiny heartbeat of civilization, the rhythm of responsibility, the breathless sprint from one hour to the next. But here, in this place between thought and non-thought, between drifting and dissolving, there are no clocks. You're finally somewhere the second hand cannot reach. Time dissolves in sleep, not gradually, but like ink dropped into water. One moment you're here, thinking, ticking, remembering, and the next, nothing. You slip through the cracks. The hours collapse. The concept of later loses meaning. The idea of tomorrow becomes fiction. Have you ever noticed? You never feel the passing of time while asleep. You close your eyes for what seems like seconds, and suddenly it's morning, or not. Sometimes sleep stretches. A single dream feels longer than a whole afternoon. What does that mean? It means time is not real here. Not in the way we pretend it is. In the waking world, you measure everything, minutes to meetings, days to deadlines, years since a heartbreak, moments left to live. But sleep has no need for that. Sleep doesn't wear a watch. Sleep doesn't keep score. You don't age in sleep. You don't rush. You don't arrive late. You simply are. And in that being, time has no authority. This is why dreams feel so strange, because they're untethered from the timeline. You're a child in one moment, an elder in the next. You're back in a place that hasn't existed for decades. You're meeting someone who hasn't been born yet, all at once, because in sleep, time folds in on itself, like origami, like waves returning to the sea. There is no forward or backward, only depth. And in that depth, you begin to remember something your waking mind always forgets. That time is a language, not a law. It's something we made up to keep ourselves organized, to pretend we have control, but control is a myth. Especially here. Here, in this darkened sanctuary of sleep, you are released from the tyranny of time. No past weighing you down. No future pulling you forward. Just the stillness. The now. Eckhart Tolle once said, "Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have." But sleep doesn't ask you to realize it. Sleep forces you to live it. Because when you sleep, you enter the eternal now. No clocks, no calendars. Just pure existence, unmarked by numbers. And this is why some part of you resists waking, because waking reintroduces the ticking, the deadlines, the chase. You open your eyes and suddenly you're behind, you're late, you're running, you're measuring your life again. But here you're weightless. Here you're timeless. And maybe, just maybe, that's closer to the truth. What if time is the illusion and sleep is the real world? What if the ticking is just noise and the silence of sleep is the music beneath? You feel it now, the drifting, the soft collapse of before and after, the melting of memory and schedule. You are floating in something deeper than night. You are becoming unmeasured, uncounted, free, so rest. Let the seconds vanish, let the clock hands melt like wax. There is no rush. There is no delay. You're exactly where you need to be outside of time, wrapped in the soft, dark fabric of the eternal. And when you return, you'll carry this stillness with you, like a secret, like a hidden doorway in the mind, one you can revisit whenever the ticking grows too loud. But for now, let time dissolve. Let it drip away like fading starlight. Let the hours collapse into the hush of now, because this this momentless moment. This is where the soul breathes. This is where you begin to disappear, not into forgetfulness, but into peace. And when the morning comes, you won't know how long you've been here, only that it was enough. Have you ever had a dream that felt like hours-long conversations, intricate stories, lifetimes lived, only to wake and realize you were asleep for mere minutes? Or the opposite, you drift off, close your eyes, and in what feels like a blink, the entire night has passed. Time, once rigid and ruthless, becomes slippery in dreams, elastic, unreliable, and maybe that's the truth. It's been hiding all along. That time isn't real, at least not in the way we think. In dreams, it collapses, it expands, it loops and rewinds. You walk into a room and suddenly you're 5 years old. You blink again and you're standing on a planet that doesn't exist. You fall in love, lose someone, grieves, grow old, all inside the span of a breath. That's the paradox. You feel time moving inside the dream, but not according to any clock. It's not measured by minutes. It's measured by meaning. A single glance from someone you love, a room filled with strange music, a sentence whispered by a figure with no face. These things don't take time, they take weight. Dreams aren't bound to physics, they're bound to your soul's internal gravity. They move according to memory, emotion, pain, desire, not seconds. When you sleep, you step into a place where time bends to feeling, where a moment can stretch across a lifetime, or a lifetime can be folded into a single image. And this isn't chaos. This is something older than logic, something truer than numbers. Because what if your soul doesn't operate on clocks? What if your consciousness exists outside of time altogether? Some philosophers, like Henry Bergson, believed that time is not something we experience as it really is. That clock time is artificial, but lived time, or Dewey, is fluid, emotional, subjective. That's what dreams are. They're the soul's, Dewey, the unstructured unfolding of meaning and memory, unbothered by the ticking of any watch. So, when you dream, you're not just asleep, you're outside of deadlines, outside of aging, outside of decay. This is why sleep can be healing, because in that liminal space, you step beyond the world that's always rushing forward, and you let your soul stretch. You may not remember the dream, but your body does, your spirit does. It carries the weight and relief of time rearranged, and maybe that's why dreams are so strange, because they come from a place where time is circular, where cause and effect don't matter, where you can see someone you've lost, but they're not lost, where you can meet your future self before your current self is ready. This is dream time, and it laughs at calendars. You are floating in it now, even if you're unaware, your body still, your breath slow, your mind somewhere deep in the folds of timeless thought. You may be reliving something, you may be inventing something, you may be healing something, and none of it has to make sense, because Dreamtime doesn't care about logic. It only cares about depth. So don't be afraid of the strangeness, the melting staircases, the familiar people with unfamiliar eyes, the sudden teleportation from forests to freeways to your childhood bedroom. This is not madness. This is the language of a timeless soul trying to say something without words. Let it speak. Let the paradox flow through you. Let it make you feel, even if you don't understand. Because when you wake, you'll bring some of that dream time with you. A trace of the freedom, a ghost of the expansiveness, a reminder that your life, your waking life, doesn't have to be ruled by clocks. You can live a moment deeply and let it stretch. You can pause and feel without needing a schedule to justify it. This is the secret sleep tries to tell you, that time isn't always ticking. Sometimes it's waiting. Sometimes it's folding into itself. Sometimes it's you. So now, drift, let dream time carry you. Let it fold and stretch and float. You are not bound. You are not late. You are not aging right now. You are experiencing, and in that, you are eternal. You've spent your whole life obeying time. You've worshipped its hours. You've feared its passing. You've tried to master it, to organize it, schedule it, stretch it, stop it, but it always wins. It keeps going, relentless, until sleep, because here, in this stillness, you've stumbled into a secret the world rarely speaks of. Timelessness is not absence. It's truth, and you've felt it before. Not just in sleep, but in those rare moments when time seemed to pause. The first time you stood in front of the ocean, the second after a kiss, the breath before a loss, the silent spaces between thunder and lightning. That's timelessness, and it's always been waiting. Sleep, then, is not an escape, it's a return to the way things were before you were born, when no one counted the minutes, when nothing was urgent, when existing was enough. You are not broken here. You are not behind. You are not running out of anything. Time tells you a story every day, that you're getting older, that you're running late, that you've missed your chance. But sleep writes a different story, one without chapters, one without clocks, one that simply says, you are, and that's enough. Close your eyes, even tighter now. Let go of the narrative. Let go of the age, the deadlines, the pressure to improve. Because in the universe of sleep, you are not improving, you are dissolving into something honest, something wide and open, and you an MEAS. You are ED. There is no calendar in your bloodstream, no wristwatch wrapped around your breath. You were not born with a ticking clock inside your soul. You were born with presence. You were born with stillness. Time was taught to you, but this timeless state, this was always yours. That's why it feels like home, and it is home. Not a place, but a state, a space where the universe holds you in stillness and says, you don't have to earn rest. You are rest. This is what we long for. Not just sleep, but freedom from being measured. Everywhere you go in life, you're measured. Grades, weight, age, income, reputation, numbers clinging to your name. But in sleep, the numbers fall away. They can't follow you here. You are uncounted, uncontained, unbound, and in that freedom there's truth. Not the truth the waking world demands, but the deep truth that whispers from the dark. You are not a machine. You are not a statistic. You are not a race against the clock. You are a soul, and the soul has no schedule. That's why time stops in sleep, because sleep was never meant to fit in the calendar. It was meant to stretch beyond it, a place where clocks go mute, and your essence speaks. Listen now. Can you hear it? The soft hum beneath your heartbeat, the silence between your thoughts. That's timelessness, and it's been here the whole time. You just had to stop chasing to feel it. So let yourself drift. Let your breath grow slower than time itself. Let your body forget the hour. Let your soul remember what it means to be without needing to do. This is not sleep. This is being, and being is beyond time. So when you wake, whenever that is, carry this with you. This stillness, this truth, let it shape the way you live. not by hours, but by depth, not by how many things you check off, but how deeply you feel the ones that matter, not by how fast you move, but how fully you pause. You are not your schedule, you are not your deadline, you are the space between the ticks, the silence between the seconds, and that silence, that's where you've always truly lived. You're deeper now, deeper than sleep, deeper than stillness. You've slipped below thought, below name, below story. This is where the dreams begin, but not the kind you tell people about. Not the ones with flying or falling or chasing, no. These dreams are older, heavier, stranger. These are not random. These are echoes, echoes of something eternal, and they begin the moment your mind stops, pretending to be in control. Your mind, it's always performing, always pretending to be rational, to be awake, to be in charge. It narrates, judges, plans, panics, but when you sleep, when real sleep comes, that narrator finally loses its grip, and something else slips in. It doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symbols, in forests that bend like rivers, in clocks without faces, in familiar people with unfamiliar eyes, in the feeling that you've been here before, even though you never have. This is the soul speaking. You see, when you dream, your mind doesn't invent, it remembers. But not just your memories, not just birthdays and cities, and pain, no doubt. It remembers before. It remembers what it meant to be infinite, to not be a name, to not be a job title, to not be a body. In dreams, you go there, you go back. That's why it feels so strange, why you can't explain it to anyone in the morning. Because how do you explain the infinite to someone who's only speaking in hours? You dream of staircases that lead nowhere, of oceans in the sky, of houses with rooms you never noticed until now. That's the language of eternity, because when the body rests, and the mind is no longer trying to organize the world, the door opens, and what steps in isn't chaos. It's ancient order, a deeper structure, a truer form. You are not hallucinating. You are remembering. That's why some dreams feel more real than waking life. Because in a way, they are. They're closer to the source, closer to the center, closer to that place before beginnings. And perhaps, just perhaps, that's where you came from. That's what some philosophers believed, that dreams are messages from the eternal self. That they're how your soul sends postcards from the infinite, written in symbols instead of ink. You may not understand them right away. You're not supposed to. They're not here to be solved. They're here to haunt you, to stay with you, to echo, because the eternal does not shout. It whispers, and dreams are the echo of that whisper, rolling across the chambers of your sleeping mind. You feel that now, don't you? That strange familiarity, that feeling like you've dreamed this place before. Like you're dreaming the same dream every night, just wearing different masks. Maybe you are. Maybe your soul keeps returning to the same truth, but dressed in new skin each time, until you're ready to hear it. And if you listen closely, you might notice something else. That these dreams aren't coming to you, they're coming from you, because you are not a passive sleeper. You are the dreamer, the builder, the architect of every storm and every door, even the terrifying ones, especially those, because sometimes the eternal doesn't come wrapped in light. Sometimes it arrives as shadow, as the monster you keep running from, as the hallway that never ends, as the voice calling your name in a language you don't know but still understand. Do not be afraid. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply deep, deep in the part of yourself that doesn't wear a face, or a name, or a story, and here everything you see is a piece of you trying to return home. So sleep. Keep sleeping. Don't try to explain. Don't try to interpret. Just allow the dreams to echo. Allow them to pass through you like wind through trees. Allow the eternal to keep whispering through the fog. You don't have to understand. You only have to listen. And one night, maybe years from now, you'll see a symbol, a face, a place, a sound, and you'll suddenly know, not with your mind, but with your soul. You'll know what the dreams were saying. You'll know what they were always pointing to, and it will feel like coming home. But for now, keep drifting. Let the dreams echo. Let the eternal speak in strange ways, because you are not just asleep. You are remembering who you really are beneath the clock, beneath the skin, beneath the mind. There's a reason why sleep has always been called a little death. Not because it's frightening, but because, in sleep, you gently rehearse the final surrender. Your body falls still. Your senses turn inward. You release the world without resistance. You drift into a space where identity dissolves, where time unravels, where memory floats like mist, and you are no longer anyone specific. You're not your name, not your past, not your responsibilities. You're something else now, something wider, something quieter. This, right here, is the soul's way of preparing, not for the end, but for the beginning that waits after it. Every night, when you fall asleep, you practice letting go. You practice trust. You practice the art of releasing control. That is what death is, not a punishment, not a thief, but a return, a gentle invitation back into the vast unknown that birthed you. And dreams, they are the soul's theater, where it acts out endings, where it plays with the edge, where it explores all the things the waking mind is too afraid to say out loud. That's why some dreams feel like farewells, like you're watching someone disappear, like you're saying goodbye to a version of yourself that can't come with you because you are. Each dream is a soft rehearsal for a different kind of release. And the strange part is, you survive them all. Every night, you die a little and wake up new. Not completely new, but just enough to feel the shift. You wake with a slight ache you can't explain, a softness, a forgotten truth clinging to your skin. You brush your teeth and make your coffee, but some part of you stayed behind. Some part of you is still drifting in that space when nothing had to make sense. Because in that space, your soul was stretching, practicing, preparing, not for a tragedy, but for a return. Even religions speak of this, of sleep as a glimpse of the afterlife, of the soul wandering, visiting, touching eternity before being called back to the body. And perhaps that's why we fear sleep sometimes, because it reminds us that we are not fully in control. That part of us belongs to something greater, something we cannot name. But that's not a reason to resist. That's the reason to surrender deeper. So close your eyes now if you haven't already. Feel your breath like a soft wave. In, out, in, out. You are drifting again, letting go of who you think you are, letting the soul lead for once. And in that space, you are becoming familiar with the end, not in fear, but in peace. This is the rehearsal. This is the remembering. That death is not the opposite of life. It is the continuation of being without the burdens of biology. And each time you sleep, you are stepping just a little closer to understanding that truth without words. So when your dreams feel strange, when they feel like departures, don't pull away. Lean in. Ask yourself, What part of me is ready to go? What part of me no longer serves me? What part of me am I burying inside the symbol of this dream? You may not get an answer in words. You may get a door, a face, a forest, but it will feel like truth. And when you return to waking life, you will bring back something sacred, the memory that endings aren't punishments. They're passages, doorways, transformations. Sleep teaches you this. Dreams remind you, and every night you get to practice dying so that one day you can do it without fear, because you've already done it 1,000 times before, softly, silently, and always. You woke again, not the same, but somehow more whole, so drift. Now, sink deeper. Let the dream become the river. Let the soul rehearse its freedom. Let the death within sleep become your teacher, because one day, when the real end comes, you'll smile, you'll sigh, and you'll recognize it, not as darkness, but as home. In dreams, you speak a language you never studied, a language older than speech, older than thought. It does not rely on grammar or logic. It flows through images, symbols, and emotions, like ripples across a hidden lake. That's how the infinite talks to you. It doesn't use sentences. It uses signs, and while your waking mind may forget them by morning, your soul remembers, because symbols don't just carry meaning, they carry memory. Not memory from this life, but from before. Before language, before time, before the mind was confined to flesh and clockwork. Have you noticed how certain dream elements return again and again? The endless hallway, the window that leads to sky, the shadow figure watching from a corner, the door you're afraid to open, the child you can't reach. These are not accidents. They are invitations. Each symbol in your dream is a mirror, but it doesn't reflect your face. It reflects your essence, what you're yearning for, what you're avoiding, what you're slowly becoming. The staircase isn't just a staircase. It's your evolution. The ocean isn't just water. It's your longing to dissolve into something greater. The forest isn't trees. It's your unconscious asking to be heard. These symbols aren't random images. They're messages, handwritten by the part of you that lives beyond skin, beyond logic, beyond identity. The infinite uses dreams the way the sea uses waves, to reach you gently, over and over, until you remember where you came from. And the strange thing is, you already know this language. You always have. It's the language of your bones, the hum beneath your heartbeat, the feeling you get when you see something beautiful but can't explain why it hurts a little. That's the symbol waking up in you. Think of a dream you once had that you never forgot, not because it was terrifying, not because it was vivid, but because it meant something. Even if you couldn't say what, that was your soul showing you a piece of the puzzle. Just one glimpse. Not enough to explain, but enough to shift. Something in you. Enough to make you walk through the world a little differently. That's how symbols work. They don't always make sense, but they always leave a mark. And the deeper you drift into sleep, the more symbols arrive. Not to confuse, but to awaken. They are the alphabet of the divine, the poetry of the unconscious, the roadmap back to the eternal self. But in waking life, we ignore them. We call them nonsense. We laugh them off. We dismiss them as brain static. But what if they're the most honest things you experience? What if your dreams are more you than your resume, more true than your birth certificate, more lasting than your memories? Because dreams come from a place untouched by performance. There is no audience in a dream, no judgment, no applause, only truth, disguised as metaphor, wrapped in symbol, drifting gently through your night like falling stars. Tonight, as you sleep deeper, you may see a symbol rise again, a recurring image, a place you've never seen in waking life, but know in your bones. Do not dismiss it. Let it float. Let it speak. Let it echo. You don't have to solve it. You just have to feel it. Let it sink beneath your skin and settle somewhere soft inside you. Because maybe you're not dreaming for entertainment. Maybe you're dreaming for alignment, for remembrance, for integration, for messages carried across the void by a language older than time. This is the conversation between your soul and the infinite, and it happens every night, in silence, in symbols, in sleep. So let go again. Let your mind drift past meaning. Let the symbols rise from the dark like constellations, and know that something vast is speaking, and you just by dreaming are listening. Close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to disappear. Not from the world, but from yourself. Feel it. That strange flicker behind the eyelids. That quiet loosening of identity. That's the edge of the velvet void. It's not black, not empty, not cruel. It's soft like the inside of silence, like the womb of the universe. This is the place you enter every night. And every night you forget it the moment you wake. It's not a place of dreams, it's what comes before the dreams, where thought is not yet born, where self has no name, where time breathes slowly, or maybe doesn't exist at all. In deep sleep, true sleep, you are gone, and yet you are never more held. No dreams, no pictures, no voices, just the hum behind existence. The deep, pulsing awareness that doesn't need a body or a story or a future. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment you blink out, like someone turned the switch, but instead of darkness, there's nothing, not frightening nothing, sacred nothing. Warm, velvety, vast. This is the sleep no one talks about. The one without the dreams, the one without the memories, the one where you vanish and are still whole. Ancient mystics believed this. State deep, dreamless sleep was the closest the human soul could get to touching God. Because in that stillness, there is no separation. No you and it. Only union. Only oneness. That's why the body wakes so deeply rested. Not just because it stopped moving, but because the soul went home. Home to the unformed. Home to the velvet void. Home to the source before light. Had a name, and yet this place scares the waking mind. Because it can't control it, can't analyze it, can't remember it. But that doesn't make it less real. In fact, that makes it more real. Because the truest things are often the ones that can't be held, only entered, only felt, only trusted. So tonight, let go a little more. Let yourself be erased for a while. Not as punishment, as peace. You are not disappearing. You are dissolving into something kinder than thought, larger than identity, wider than time. And when you return, when your body stretches awake and your name returns to you, you will not remember the void, but the void will remember you. It will cradle you again tomorrow night, and the next, until you understand that you are not just someone who sleeps. You are something that returns to stillness, to source, to the infinite, quiet from which everything else is just a brief and beautiful noise. So drift, sink, vanish, and be held every night. you die, not in body, but in identity. The version of you that walks and talks, that scrolls and plans and performs, fades, slowly like fog at sunrise, and something older emerges, something wordless, something you've never quite named, but always known. This is the hidden ritual of sleep, the quiet undoing of who you think you are. You may believe your identity is fixed, your name, your face, your habits, your thoughts, but these are costumes, temporary arrangements of light and memory, borrowed masks in a play you didn't write. And sleep. Sleep is the intermission, where the masks come off, where the performer leaves the stage, where the mirror turns dark. In that darkness, what are you? You are not your job, not your relationships, not your ambitions, not even your traumas. You are simply awareness, a soft, formless flame floating in a space without walls. And the longer you stay in that space, the more the roles you wear in waking life begin to loosen. You begin to see that your name is just a sound, your face just a pattern, your thoughts just clouds passing through the sky of consciousness. Is this terrifying? Yes, if you resist it. But if you embrace it, it becomes the most liberating truth you'll ever feel. Because if identity can be put down, then pain can be too. So can shame, so can fear. So can all the stories you were told about who you had to be. Sleep shows you that identity is not who you are, it's what you wear. Like clothing, like dreams, like skin. And when you sleep, you undress. Not just the body, but the soul. This is the sacred nakedness of night. No titles, no expectations, just breath, just rest, just presence. And yet, when you wake up, the identity returns. It slips back on like an old jacket, sometimes too tight, sometimes torn, sometimes comfortable enough to forget you're even wearing it. But now, you'll know. Now, you'll remember. You are not the jacket. You are the wind that passes through it. So tonight, as you drift, watch yourself vanish. Watch the stories fall away. Watch the name dissolve. Watch even I become too heavy to carry. And in that silence, in that absolute stillness, feel what's left. It won't have a label. It won't ask for recognition. It will just be. That is you. The you that cannot be touched by time. The you that sleeps outside the edges of the map. The you that death will not end because it was never born. Sleep is a teacher, not because it explains, but because it erases. Gently, lovingly, repeatedly, every night you die. Every morning you're reborn, but now you awaken a little lighter, a little less entangled, a little closer to the truth. That identity is a story, and you are the silence between the words. Have you ever noticed the most peaceful moments in your life are the ones without words? Not the achievements, not the applause, not the victories loudly announced, but the quiet ones, the hush after crying, the warmth of a silent hug, the stillness after the lights go out, and sleep. Sleep is the deepest of them all, because it's the only place where thought itself is finally laid to rest. Your mind, usually a storm of noise, slows, then fades, then disappears completely. And in that disappearance, something miraculous happens. You survive. You do not need thought to exist. You do not need thought to be, in fact. It's only in the absence of thought that you finally feel what being truly is. It isn't analysis. It isn't strategy. It isn't identity. It's presence, pure and uncut. That's the peace beyond thought, And this peace, it doesn't argue, it doesn't demand, it doesn't beg for attention. It waits, patient as a mountain, soft as a shadow, still as space. This is what the deep sleep state offers. Not just rest, but a return to the version of you that isn't thinking, isn't planning, isn't remembering, isn't comparing. It's the version of you that simply is. No goal, no fear, no shape. Just awareness, resting in awareness, like a drop of ink dissolving into still water. You don't find this peace by chasing it. You don't think your way toward it. You fall into it by accident, by surrender, by letting go of the endless stories, letting go of the fear that silence means something's wrong, letting go of the belief that your value is in your doing. There is a truth that no book can teach and no voice can explain. It arrives only in the hush, only when the inner narration has lost its strength, only when thought has run out of things to say. And in that hush, there's peace, not the peace of achievement, but the peace of return, the peace of remembering that you are not the storm. You are the sky it passes through. So tonight, as you drift toward deeper rest, don't fear the loss of thought. Welcome it, welcome the quiet, welcome the blankness, welcome the velvet silence that swallows everything, because inside it you'll find yourself again. Not the self that tweets and texts and performs, but the self that breathes without permission, that exists without needing a reason. That is the peace sleep teaches you. Not the kind you learn, but the kind you become. And when you wake tomorrow, maybe you'll carry a little more of that silence inside you, a little more of that stillness beneath your steps, a little more of that truth that the world may be loud, but your soul knows how to sleep like the end of time. Time is a story we tell ourselves, a story made of numbers and ticking hands, a story that says we are always moving forward, never backward, never still, but sleep. Sleep doesn't care about that story. Sleep has never heard of a clock. Sleep doesn't believe in past or future. It only knows the now, a now so vast and slow that it stretches wider than any minute, deeper than any hour. Have you ever noticed, when you fall asleep, you forget time completely? It doesn't matter whether you sleep for 20 minutes or 12 hours, it feels the same on the inside. Time collapses, folds in on itself, becomes weightless, because sleep knows the truth. Time is an illusion built for the waking world, a cage to keep your mind organized, to keep your life predictable, to make sense of the chaos. But in sleep, that cage opens, and you slip through the bars into something timeless. Have you ever dreamed an entire lifetime in one night? Loved someone, lost something, traveled far and wide only to wake and find mere minutes had passed? It's because dreams exist outside. The tyranny of the clock. They flow not by minutes, but by meaning. They don't ask, what time is it? They ask, what are you ready to feel? And so the hours blur. The seconds stretch or vanish, and you drift freely through experiences that would take years to live if time were real. But it isn't. Not in sleep. Not in truth. Not in the place you go when your mind finally lets go of measuring everything. Children feel this too, before they learn to count the minutes, before they wear watches, before they're told when to wake, when to work, when to grow up. To a child, an hour is a river, a week is a lifetime, a moment is infinite. Sleep brings you back to that freedom. It whispers, forget the clock, forget the deadline, forget the race. You are not behind. You are not ahead. You are simply here, and here has no calendar, no alarm, no age. That's why deep sleep feels like peace, because it unhooks you from time. It removes the heavy coat of urgency and lets you float as you were always meant to float. Like a feather outside gravity, like a soul outside the schedule. In the waking world, we panic about time, running out, wasting it, not having enough. But in sleep, you remember, you are time, and time is not a clock. Time is consciousness unfolding. You are the dreamer and the dream and the dream's duration all at once. So tonight, let the seconds slip through your fingers. Let the hours blur into velvet fog. Let the story of time unravel like a loose thread, because you're not running out of time. You're returning to the truth that you were never in a hurry, that your soul keeps no schedule, and that sleep is not a pause, it's a return to where the clock never started ticking at all. What is a dream, if not a rebellion against the laws of time? In your dreams, you can move from childhood to old age in the space of a breath. You can see someone who died years ago and speak with them like they never left. You can fly, fall, run through entire cities of thought, and none of it follows. The ticking hand of a clock. This is not a glitch. This is not an error in your brain. This is freedom. Dreams are proof that time isn't real. Not in the way we pretend it is. When you dream, you escape the narrow hallway of linear life. You step outside of the rigid timeline where every second is forced to follow the one before it. And suddenly you are free to drift, to spiral, to revisit, to rewrite. You might dream of being a child again, but feel the emotions of your adult self. You might meet someone new, but know them as if they've always been there. You might be nowhere at all, just floating in a color, or a feeling, or a sound that doesn't exist in waking life. That's what it means to dream outside of time. In dreams, you touch places that never existed, but feel older than history. You remember things you never lived, truths that never made it into words. And when you wake, you try to piece it all together. You look at the clock, you frown at the numbers. You ask, how can that dream be gone? How did all of that happen in just a few minutes? But the dream hasn't gone. It's folded itself into your bones. It's whispered something your waking mind can't decode, because dreaming isn't entertainment. It's communication from the part of you that remembers how to live without time. This is why dream logic doesn't make sense on paper, because it doesn't belong to time-based thinking. It belongs to something deeper, to symbolic truth, emotional landscapes, eternal patterns in dreams. You're not just watching a story, you are the story. You are every character, every setting, every meaning, and none of it cares what time your alarm is set for, because the dream realm is the only place where time kneels, where it forgets its own rules, where the soul takes over and the mind gets quiet. So don't be afraid when a dream makes no sense. It isn't meant to. It isn't for your logic, it's for your deeper memory, your timeless memory, the one buried under the surface of your normal life. Dreams are the soul stretching its limbs. They are ancient letters written in symbols instead of sentences. And each night, when your eyes close, you are invited back to the strange, the beautiful, the timeless. So as you fall asleep tonight, don't just wait for rest. Wait for the world behind the world. Wait for the stories that don't need time to unfold. Wait for the impossible, the surreal, the sacred. Because in dreams, you don't just bend time, you leave it behind altogether. What if this is all preparation? Every night you close your eyes, you leave behind the ticking of time, the rhythm of routine, the urgency of living, and in that space beyond minutes and hours, you slip gently into the practice of eternity. Sleep is a rehearsal, a quiet, holy trial, for the day you don't wake up. But this isn't a morbid thought. Not here, not now, because sleep doesn't treat death as something to fear. It treats it as something familiar, something soft, something like returning. Have you ever felt it? That moment just before waking when your dream fades, but you haven't quite remembered who you are yet. You lie there, half here, half gone, and the world is silent. That is the edge of eternity. That is where you meet the version of yourself who isn't busy surviving, and yet you return each time. The dreamer wakes, the body stirs, the self rebuilds layer by layer, thought by thought, name by name, but sleep always gives you a glimpse of the nothingness that isn't frightening, of the vastness that isn't lonely, of the peace that isn't earned, only remembered. Eternal rest is not about the end, it's about release, the release of time, of pressure, of becoming. It is the stillness that has always been waiting for you, not to take something from you, but to give you everything you forgot you were. We call it death because we don't understand it, but sleep understands. It knows that the self is a tide. It rises, it falls, it rises again. You lose yourself in the night, but you don't panic, because some quiet truth in you remembers that nothing is truly lost. Even the dreams you forget, they shape you. Even the silences you sleep through, they heal you. And so every night you let go a little more. You surrender the illusion that time is real, that control is necessary, that the story must never stop. And in that surrender, you find rest, true rest, not just for the body, but for the soul. It's the kind of rest that doesn't need a reason, the kind that doesn't count the hours, the kind that feels like floating in a space that never ends and never began. So when we speak of eternal rest, we're not talking about disappearance. We're talking about return. Return to the self before the name. Return to the breath before the lungs. Return to the being that doesn't depend on clocks or calendars or questions. Sleep takes you there a little each night. And one day, when the dream of waking life ends, you won't be afraid, because you'll recognize the feeling. You'll remember the silence. You'll know how to let go. And the dreamer will return to the dream, not as a stranger, but as something whole, complete, endless. Sleep, death, and the soul's gentle mirror every night. Without protest, we let go of the world. We put down our names, our memories, our to-do lists, our regrets, our dreams for tomorrow. We close our eyes and surrender, without knowing if we'll ever open them again. And yet, we trust. We trust that sleep will carry us safely, that the dark won't swallow us whole, that we'll find ourselves again on the other side of the void. Why? Because sleep is death's gentle rehearsal. It is the soft, nightly reminder that the end is not a punishment, it's a process, a return, a homecoming, a dissolving of the self into something wider than identity, deeper than thought, older than memory. You lie down, alone, eyes closed, and drift into nothingness. No applause, no drama, just silence and space. And in that space, the self begins to loosen. You forget where you are. You forget who you are. You forget that forgetting ever frightened you. This is not loss. This is peace. This is what your soul knows long before the mind catches up that it's okay to disappear, that there is beauty in vanishing, that not every truth must be carried with you through every hour of every day. We think death is a wall, a hard stop, a terrifying unknown, but sleep teaches something softer. It teaches that endings can feel like floating, that absence can feel like warmth, that dissolving can feel like becoming whole again. Each night you die a little, but it's not grim, it's sacred. You lose your grip on the world, and the world does not punish you. Instead, it welcomes you back into the formless, into the breathless, into the space behind the noise. And in that space, something inside you remembers. I am not this body. I am not this name. I am not this moment. You are the quiet. You are the letting go. You are the one who watches, even as the watcher fades. So the next time fear whispers to you about death, about endings, about final breaths and fading lights, remember sleep. Remember how many times you've let go completely and still returned. Remember that the soul does not fear the dark. Only the ego does. And the ego is loud, but it is not wise. Let sleep remind you of the deeper truth, that there is a part of you that cannot be lost, not to sleep, not to time, not even to death, because what you are was never just a waking self. You are the space between thoughts, the silence beneath dreams, the stillness behind the heartbeat, and every night, as you surrender to rest, you practice not vanishing, but returning to that which has no end. When you dream, you meet yourself in fragments, not the version others see, not the face in the mirror, or the name on the documents, or the voice answering emails, no. In dreams, you meet your shadow, your soul's echo, the silent version of you that watches from behind the curtain during the waking play of life. This shadow doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symbols. A broken staircase, a forgotten forest, a stranger with your mother's eyes. It doesn't offer explanations. It offers invitations to look deeper, to sit with discomfort, to feel what you've buried. The dreamscape isn't random, it's sacred ground. It is the mirror the soul holds up when the mind finally falls asleep. And in that mirror, you don't just see your fears, you see your forgotten truths. Who are you when no one is watching, when nothing is expected of you, when the world is quiet and there's no performance to keep up? In dreams, you find out you may become someone else entirely, a child again, an old man, a bird, a shadow with no face. You may walk into houses that don't exist but feel heartbreakingly familiar. You may cry for people you've never met, or fight battles you already lost in waking life. And somehow it all matters, because the soul remembers. The soul stores more than memories. It stores meaning, and dreams are how it speaks. Not loudly, not clearly, but truthfully. That strange, recurring dream you've had since you were young. That's not just a glitch. That's your shadow knocking, asking to be seen, to be understood, to be forgiven, because the soul is not simple. It is layered like a sky with many moons. It is not made of light alone, it is also made of shadow, and in sleep you see it all, the full picture, not the filtered version, not the one you wear for others, but the raw, vast, intricate self that spans lifetimes of feeling. That's why dreams can shake you, why you sometimes wake up crying without knowing why, because a part of you just made contact with something real. Sleep allows that. It lifts the veil and welcomes your hidden self into the open, even if only for a moment. And every time it happens, your soul exhales a little more, as if to say, yes, this is who I am, too. Yes, even this deserves rest. Yes, even this can be loved. So tonight, as you close your eyes, don't just seek silence. Seek reflection. Listen to what the dream will show you, not to frighten you, but to heal you. Because in the vast theatre of dreams, your soul performs a sacred play, and you are not just the actor, you are the story, the mirror, and the one who dares to. Finally, look. What if death isn't a door closing, but a curtain falling, only to rise again in a different theatre? We speak of death like it's an ending, a full stop, a final breath. But sleep teaches us otherwise, because every night you lay yourself down and vanish, not in fear, not in pain, but in peace. And something in you, without hesitation, believes you'll return. Sleep isn't a cousin of death, it's a rehearsal for it, a nightly act of trust. You dissolve willingly, you drift into the unknown. You let the world fall behind, and yet you feel safe. So what if death is simply the longest, most sacred sleep? The moment the soul says, I am ready to rest beyond the body. Not as an escape, but as a completion. We fear death because we are taught to measure value by how long we last, how much we do, how visible we remain. But maybe value is found in surrender. Maybe death is not a collapse, but a bloom in reverse. A soft return into what made us think of how peaceful deep sleep feels. No hunger, no anxiety, no clocks, no ego, just stillness. Now imagine that peace without the need to wake. No alarms, no deadlines, no decay. Just endless exhale. Is that truly something to fear? We are not afraid of sleep, we even crave it. So perhaps our fear of death is not fear of the unknown, but fear of losing control, because death strips us of identity, of story, of voice. But that voice you speak with all day, the one that defines you, is only a fragment. It is not the whole. There is something larger, something silent, something that does not fear endings, because it remembers that nothing real can ever truly end. The body falls away, the mind rests, and the soul, timeless, infinite, drifts into a deeper layer of sleep. Not to forget, not to disappear, but to reunite, to remember what it was before becoming human. In that eternal sleep, there is no loneliness, no separation, just being. The kind of being we glimpse when the dream feels too beautiful to be random. When we wake up with tears in our eyes and no words for why, that is where death leads. Not into nothing, but into everything we once were before we knew how to name it. So when your time comes, as it must for all of us, may you remember the feeling of falling asleep with peace in your chest, with love in your breath, with the knowing that sleep never took anything from you. It only gave you more of yourself. Let death be like that. Let it be the final sleep, the gentle release, the last dream before becoming whole again. And tonight, as you drift into your own soft sleep, know this. You are practicing not an end, but a return. Not vanishing, but remembering. And in that remembering, you are already free. You are not just a person trying to fall asleep. You are a galaxy learning to rest. Inside your chest, stars have burned and faded for millennia. Your blood carries the memory of oceans before the first wave ever touched a shore. Your breath echoes. The wind that carved mountains into dust long before your name was ever spoken. And yet you worry. You count minutes. You wrestle with the weight of not falling asleep on time. You fight rest as if the universe itself has deadlines. But the stars do not hurry. The moon does not rush its phases. The night sky does not perform for anyone, so why must you? Sleep is not something you earn. It is something that already belongs to you, like gravity, like silence, like dusk. You are made of the same stillness that drapes the sky at midnight. You are not separate from the night. You are the night in those quiet moments. When you close your eyes and stop being the character you played during the day, you return to something ancient, something vast, something whole. Sleep, in its truest form, is cosmic surrender. It is the self bowing before something larger than thought, not in fear, but in awe, in gratitude, in reunion. When you fall asleep tonight, you are not simply turning off. You are dissolving back into the pulse of a universe that never needed you to be anything but still. Feel that, let it in, the truth that your existence is not a project, it is a poem. And like all good poems, you are not meant to be read quickly or understood completely. You are meant to be felt, gently, softly, slowly, solely. So inhale, let the world fall away. Exhale, let your heart beat. Remember that it does not need to race to matter. Tonight, sleep not like someone escaping, but like someone arriving. Arriving in your body, arriving in your breath, arriving in the present, where time has no meaning and nothing is missing. Let the end of time begin here, in your chest, in your spine, in the hush between thoughts. Let it unfold like a great exhale from the mouth of the cosmos through your lungs. Because when you sleep tonight, you are not just closing your eyes, you are opening the door to everything you already are. Beneath the noise, beneath the striving, beneath the stories. So sleep. Like a galaxy resting, like a star going dim, not in defeat, but in peace, because peace was always your birthright. You say, I'm so tired, and the world assumes you mean your body, but it's not your muscles, not your feet, not your eyes. It's something deeper, a fatigue that has nothing to do with movement and everything to do with meaning. You're not tired from walking. You're tired from carrying expectations, unspoken pain, unanswered questions, the weight of pretending to be okay. You're not weary from lack of sleep. You're weary from being awake in a world that asks too much and offers too little peace. This is soul-tired. A kind of heaviness that sinks into your breath and hides behind your smile. And yet, no one sees it, because you show up. You perform. You do what needs to be done. But inside, there's a quiet ache, a longing for stillness that doesn't need to be earned, a wish for silence that doesn't feel like failure. You want to rest, not just sleep, but truly rest. You want a kind of rest that touches your spirit, that doesn't ask you to prove your worth first, that doesn't whisper guilt as you close your eyes. You want to feel what it's like to simply exist without having to be useful, without having to be strong, without having to be on. And tonight you can, because the night does not ask questions. It does not require performance. It accepts you as you are, tired, fragile, beautiful in your unraveling. So let the sleep you seek be more than unconsciousness. Let it be return. Let it be sanctuary. As your head touches the pillow, don't think of tasks. Don't chase solutions. Let your soul stretch out like a child crawling into a lap it trusts completely. You do not need to have the answers tonight. You don't need to fix anything. You don't even need to understand your tiredness. You only need to rest. Beneath the skin, beneath the sigh, beneath the heartbeat, your soul is whispering, I'm ready to let go now. So let go of needing to be productive, of needing to be strong, of needing to hold it all together. Let your soul fall backwards into the arms of the night, into the deep, dark warmth of nothing to do and nowhere to be. And in that fall, you won't break. You'll float, because true rest doesn't take. It gives. It restores. It sings lullabies to the parts of you that forgot how to breathe. So tonight, don't just rest your body. Let your soul finally, softly, beautifully sleep. Long before we had clocks, before we divided life into hours and deadlines, we had the night. We had stillness. We had sleep, the oldest language the soul has ever known. It is not made of words. It doesn't speak in logic or sound. It speaks in rhythm, in surrender, in the silence that drapes itself around your bones when your eyes grow heavy. The soul doesn't speak English or any language you can write down. It speaks through the breath that slows without being told, through the warmth that fills your chest when you finally let go. Sleep is the soul's sanctuary. It is not a malfunction, not a wasted third of your life. It is a remembering. When you sleep, you stop trying to explain yourself. You stop needing to make sense. You return to something ancient and deeply true, the part of you that existed before the noise began. In the quiet of sleep, your soul sighs. It says, "There you are. I've been waiting for you. You don't need to be perfect here. You don't need to be strong. You don't even need to be certain. You only need to be, because sleep welcomes all of you, the parts that laugh, the parts that cry, the parts that ache in silence. It asks for no mask, no achievement, only trust, and trust is hard, isn't it? To close your eyes in a world that never stops spinning, to lie still while your mind lists everything unfinished, to surrender, knowing that nothing is guaranteed except this moment of breath and softness. But the soul remembers what the mind forgets, that this language, this deep language of rest, was yours before you could even speak. A baby falls asleep in a stranger's arms because it trusts the rhythm of life. It knows, without knowing, that safety is not found in control, but in surrender. You still have that knowing, buried beneath the tension, beneath the to-do list, beneath the noise. And tonight, as sleep draws near, let it speak to you. Not in sentences, but in sensation, in the hush that settles your chest, in the warmth between your ribs, in the slow dissolve of identity as you drift beyond your name. This is the language the soul understands, the silence that heals, the rhythm that restores, the forgetting that becomes a deeper remembering. You don't need to understand it. You just need to feel it. And as you do, know that you are speaking with something ancient, something holy, something more you than anything you say aloud during the day. This is the soul's conversation with the night. It has no words, but it says everything you've been waiting to hear. There are prayers you say out loud, with trembling lips and folded hands. And then there are prayers your body whispers when no one is listening. Sleep is one of those prayers. It is the body's quiet way of saying, I surrender. I trust the night to hold me. I release this day, this weight, this breath. Even when your mind is loud, your body prays. Every time your shoulders drop, every time your breath deepens, every time your spine softens against the bed. That is prayer. Not the kind you were taught in temples or churches, but the raw, honest kind that needs no words and no audience. Because the body is always in conversation with something beyond itself. It remembers rhythms you've forgotten. Knows when to close your eyes. It knows when you've carried too much. It knows when to say enough, even when you keep pushing, even when you refuse to stop. Your body begins to whisper, let me pray in the only way I know, by resting. This kind of prayer has no formal beginning, no perfect posture. It starts with an exhale, with lying down, with closing your eyes, not in defeat, but in reverence, because sleep is not escape, it is communion. The moment your body releases the armor of the day, the sacred begins, and not in some far-off temple, but right here, in the curl of your hand, in the rhythm of your breath, in the quiet stretch of your limbs under a blanket. You are not leaving life when you sleep. You are bowing to it, and the night becomes holy. Not because of candles or hymns, but because of stillness, because of how the body says, I trust life enough to let go of it. For now, is there anything more sacred than that? So tonight, as you feel your bones grow heavy, as your breath begins to slow, know that you are praying. Without a single word, without a single sound, you are placing yourself gently in the arms of a silence that understands everything you never said. And in return, the night wraps around you like a hymn with no beginning, no ending, only rest. This is your altar. This is your prayer. This is sleep. There is a silence that comes after sleep. Not the silence of a quiet room, not the hush of midnight wind, but a deeper silence, one that lives inside you, beneath thought, beneath memory, beneath even dreams. It is the silence where the mind ends and something else begins. You never know the moment you cross into it. You never remember your last thought. One moment, you're thinking, the next, you're gone. Gone into a place that has no name, no shape, no story, and yet you return from it every morning. What is that place? What is that space where the self disappears and yet never feels more whole? We treat sleep like a switch, on, off, awake, asleep, but between those two poles is a sacred void, a quiet surrender where your ego dissolves and your soul remembers that it never needed to try so hard to exist. In that space, you are not your name, not your fears, not your history, not even your dreams. You are simply ... being, untouched, unshaped, unburdened. You become silence itself, not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. A silence that listens, that holds, that heals. It's the kind of silence you can't hear with your ears. You feel it the way the ocean feels the moon in tides and rhythms and pull, and maybe that's what eternity really is. Not an endless timeline, but this silence, this place beyond memory, beyond grasping, beyond even wanting. When you fall into this space, you don't need to fix anything. You don't even need to be anyone. You are just ... there, and that is enough. So sleep deeply tonight. Not just to rest, but to visit the silence that waits for you like an old friend. The silence that doesn't need to understand you, because it is you, and when you come back, you won't remember what it looked like, but you will carry a little more peace, a little more softness, a little less need to explain your place in the world, because you'll have touched the part of you that has always belonged to something deeper than waking life. That is the silence beyond sleep. It's not empty, it's everything. Time is a thread we cling to when we're awake, counting hours, marking days, measuring ourselves in milestones and deadlines. But the moment you close your eyes and surrender, that thread slips through your fingers. In sleep, true sleep, time is nowhere to be found, not because it is gone, but because it no longer matters. Where you go in sleep, there are no clocks, no past tugging at your heels, no future whispering warnings, just presence. raw, still, infinite presence. The mind tries to resist this. It clings to routines and alarms and the illusion that time gives life meaning. But the soul knows better. The soul remembers that time is a story we invented to feel safe inside the unknown. And when sleep arrives, that story dissolves, like ink in water, like footprints in fog. You slip out of the timeline and into the eternal. You fall into the space between seconds, the void that holds everything but asks nothing, and there you stop. Being a person with a schedule, you become a flicker of something larger, a flame without form, a consciousness without borders. It's why dreams feel so strange, because they are unbound by order. A single night can stretch across decades, or pass in a blink dot. Time has no spine in that world, only breath, only emotion, only shadow and color and memory blending into each other like wind through tall grass. And maybe that's not just rest. Maybe that's closer to truth than anything daylight ever offers. Because what if the way we understand time is just a costume we wear? What if, deep down, we are timeless? What if sleep is not an escape from the ticking clock, but a return to what we were before time began? Feel that. Let it settle in your chest. Let the urgency fall away. Let the need to be on schedule fade. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are here, and here is eternal. So close your eyes and let time disappear. Let your soul step out of the counting. Let your breath carry you into the place where nothing is numbered, but everything is held. And when you wake, you may not remember where you've been, but part of you will know it touched forever. Dreams are not just stories. They are languages, languages that do not use grammar or sound. They speak in shadows, in shifting faces, in doors that open into oceans, and clocks that melt in your hands. When you dream, your soul is speaking, not in sentences, but in symbols. It doesn't speak in logic. It doesn't follow the rules of waking life, because your soul is older than language, older than maps and memories, older than the version of you that wakes up each morning wondering what it all means. And the dream world, that strange, liquid place you visit at night, is the soul's native tongue, a house with too many rooms, a road that never ends, a familiar voice calling from behind a door you're too afraid to open. These are not random images. They are metaphors, emotional messages wrapped in the veil of the unreal. Your mind, while asleep, loses its grip on control, and into that space your deeper self steps in. It doesn't say, "Let me explain." It says, "Let me show you," in riddles, in feelings, in stories that don't make sense, but somehow feel true. Have you ever woken from a dream with a lump in your throat and no idea why? That's the soul trying to speak across the veil. It isn't trying to confuse you, it's trying to connect. To remind you that there's more to you than what fits inside the daylight version of your life. In dreams, you might see people you've lost. You might visit places you've never been, yet feel like you've always known. You might become something else entirely, a bird, a wave, a whisper inside a storm, and none of it is meaningless. It is your soul reaching out to you, telling you what words never could dot. So when you sleep, listen, not with your ears, with your emotions, with the ache that lingers after you wake, with the questions that don't need answers. Your soul isn't trying to scare you. It's trying to guide you. It's using the canvas of your unconscious mind to paint the truths you've buried, the ones you're not ready to face in daylight, but deeply need to hold. This is why sleep matters. Not just for rest, but for remembering. Remembering what you forgot the moment you were born. That you are more than flesh, more than thoughts. You are a symbol, too. And your life, every joy, every grief, every question, is part of the dream. Your soul is still dreaming. So tonight, as you drift, don't fear the strange. Don't resist the abstract. Let the dream speak. Let the soul lead. Let the symbols rise and fall like waves. And know, even if you don't understand the message, you've received it, and that is enough. We spend our waking lives performing, wearing names like armor, carrying stories like shields. I am this, I am not that, I belong, I don't. We define ourselves by roles, achievements, beliefs, scars. But when sleep arrives, something extraordinary happens. The performance ends. The audience disappears. And the self, the noisy, needy, always explaining self, steps aside. What remains is something quieter, softer, still alive, but no longer pretending to be a character in the story. You are no longer a mother or a son, a student, a leader, a failure, a fighter. You are simply here, without definition, without defense. This is not death, but it is the rehearsal. A rehearsal for humility, for silence, for release. And in that rehearsal, the ego does something rare. It lets go of its grip. The ego doesn't vanish in anger. It doesn't scream. As it falls away, it simply fades, like steam on a mirror when no one is looking. In sleep, you are allowed to stop proving yourself. You are not required to be anything other than breath and presence. Your titles dissolve. Your opinions scatter. Your image melts into shadow, and though you may not remember it, this gentle ego death is sacred, because in that space, where identity slips off your shoulders, you glimpse what freedom really feels like, not the kind sold in books or self-help slogans, but the kind that hums in silence, asking for nothing except to be received. This is why sleep feels so peaceful. Not just because you're resting your body, but because, for a few quiet hours, you stop being someone, and you start being something deeper, older. Still this is the truth most people run from. But it is also the truth you've always longed to return to. The part of you that doesn't need approval or accomplishment or control. The part of you that is content to be no one, and in being no one, you return to everyone, to everything, to the wholeness you forgot. So tonight, as sleep approaches, welcome it not as an ending, but as a peeling away, a soft unraveling, a return to the space beneath all the noise. The ego will resist. It will try to name, define, cling, let it. And then let it go, because sleep, in its deepest truth, is the gentle death of the ego. And from that death, you will wake lighter, quieter, truer. We fear being forgotten. It haunts us quietly. The idea that one day, no one will remember our name, our face, our efforts. But what if being forgotten isn't a tragedy, but a kind of freedom? Each night when you fall asleep, the world forgets you for a while. No one is waiting for you to speak. No one is asking you to show up, to perform, to explain who you are. Even your own mind lets go of your narrative. You stop thinking in lines. You stop recalling your to-do list, your regrets, your dreams of legacy. You disappear, and it doesn't hurt. In fact, it feels like relief, because being forgotten in sleep is not rejection. It's rest. It's release. It's a quiet permission to exist without being observed. without being judged, without having to hold yourself together. In sleep, you don't matter, and that's beautiful. Because when you don't have to matter, you can simply be, free of all the weight your identity demands of you. You are not your image. You are not your reputation. You are not the thoughts others have about you. And the more you cling to being remembered, the more sleep becomes difficult, because ego clings to identity, and identity clings to noise. But sleep, true sleep, lives beyond all of that. It welcomes you, not because of who you are, but because of what you are beneath the mask. Soft breath, quiet pulse, flicker of awareness in a vast dark sea, and that's enough. So when you lie down tonight, don't reach for importance. Don't carry your image into the dark. Let it drop. Let yourself be forgotten for a few hours. Let yourself become no one in particular, because that's where the soul stretches its wings, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, in the quiet anonymity of deep sleep. And if one day you are forgotten by the world, if your name fades, if your story ends, let it be known. You lived something sacred every night. You returned to stillness. You disappeared willingly, and in doing so, you became something timeless. There is beauty in being forgotten, because there is healing in not having to be anything at all. So sleep gently. Let go of yourself. Disappear into the dark and be free. Every morning is a resurrection. You open your eyes, and for a few seconds, you don't remember who you are. Not your name, not your plans, not your pain, just light and breath and warmth. And then, like waves returning to the shore, your identity slowly comes back. Oh right, this is my life. These are my responsibilities. This is my body. This is my story. But something is different. You're not quite the same person who fell asleep last night, because in the silence of sleep, something inside you softened. Ego loosened its grip. Fear untied its knots. You came undone, and now you begin again. Morning is not just a continuation. It is a rebirth, a quiet chance to step into your life, with a gentler heart, with less armor, with more breath. Every night you practice dying. Every morning you practice being born again. And the beauty is, you get to choose what kind of self returns. You don't have to pick up the same mask. You don't have to replay the same patterns. You can move slower, speak softer, listen more. You can let the stillness you found in sleep be the soil from which a new self grows. And maybe that's what sleep teaches best, not just how to rest, but how to return. Return with reverence. Return with presence. Return not just awake, but aware. Let the light that touches your skin in the morning be a reminder. You were gone, now you are here. And in that simple fact, there is a miracle. You survived your own disappearance, and now you carry the sacred silence of the night into the noise of the day. This is the gentle gift of the ego's death. Not that you lose yourself, but that you find a truer version each time you wake. So stretch slowly. Let your breath fill you. Again, step out of the covers as if stepping into a new world. Because you are, every sunrise is a second chance. Every awakening is a rebirth. And today, you begin again. And now, as your eyes grow heavy and your breath slows to the rhythm of the dark, you've walked a long and sacred path through the quiet corners of the mind, into the hidden chambers of the soul. You've let go of time, of identity, of the need to be remembered. And in that letting go, you've found something more eternal than anything the daylight could offer. Because real sleep is not escape. It is return. It is surrender, not to weakness, but to wisdom. It is a remembering that beneath all the noise of the waking world, there is peace, there is stillness, there is you before the roles, before the masks, before the pressure to become anything. And in that version of you, the one that floats in dreams, the one that slips through time, you are not lost. You are home. Tonight, you don't need to understand everything. You don't need to solve or fix or achieve. You don't even need to be you. You are allowed to dissolve, to melt into the dark like ink in still water, to vanish, and in that vanishing, become infinite. Let sleep take you now, not gently, but completely. Let your thoughts fall away like autumn leaves on a quiet pond. Let your ego drift like dust in a shaft of fading moonlight. Let your soul rise up into the vast cathedral of your own silence. And as you drift, remember, this sleep is not the end. It is the opening. It is the space between two worlds. And in that space you are weightless. You are no longer bound by time. You are no longer separate. You are the dark and the light, the dream and the dreamer, the void and the voice within it. This is your eternal rest, not the kind that ends in death, but the kind that prepares you to truly live. So close your eyes, let go of the day, and fall like the end of time itself. Fall into peace, into truth, into you. Good night, traveler. And if you find yourself floating between stars tonight, just know you've been here before, and you are always welcome to return. If this journey into sleep and soul touched you, if it held space for your rest, your surrender, your forgetting and remembering, then leave a piece of yourself with us. Subscribe to this channel, not for the algorithm, not for the numbers, but so that whenever you are weary again, you will know the way back here. Back to stillness, back to sleep, back to the end of time. We'll be waiting. Good night.